Okay, it's on the hour. Let's start. We have a lot to cover today. For those of you who are brand new, this is how these sessions work. We have 40 to 45 minutes of training where I'll be teaching you. Today, I'll be teaching you how to structure proposals. And then what we do is we'll run a poll where you get to vote for what you would like me to teach you next month, which is September. So this one was chosen last month. That's why we're doing this particular topic. And then you'll get to tell me what you'd like to cover next month. And then we go into Q&A. We have about typically 10, 15 minutes at the end. We finish on the hour. It's a hard stop, an hour, 60 minutes together. And I will answer as many questions as I can. So if you have a question, and perhaps Sarah will help me out or someone will, if you have a question, put it in the comments, but put 2 capital Qs in front so it jumps out. Someone will do that soon so I can show you what that means. 2 capital Qs and perhaps a question mark at the end, because sometimes the comments go mad. I do try to read out as many comments as possible, but my priority will be the questions. Now, one thing I forgot to say, when was it? Last month. Last month, I forgot to say, some of you know this. Oh, and here you go. Sarah's kind of come in and said, that's what a QQ looks like. If those of you knew, put a QQ in front if you have a question for me, and I'll answer as many as I possibly can. And greetings, Bill. Good to see you. Yes. So last month I forgot. One of the things we do is for everybody who shows up live to these sessions, we make a contribution to help make the world a better place. We're a big fan of the B1G1 organization, which many others here are also, like Neil Criddle. And so what we do is every month we pick a particular project, and we then make a contribution afterwards based on everybody who shows up. So we'll see what the stats are. For this month, for August, the project that we are focusing on is about domestic violence in Cambodia. Apparently, 1 in 3 Cambodian men have admitted to domestic violence at some point. So one of the things that we want to do is raise awareness. This project's about raising awareness through social media. And what we'll do is we'll contribute to the project, a contribution for each person who is here. Okay, I'm going to get into the content because we have got a lot to cover. Then we'll run the poll so you can vote for next month, and then we'll answer those questions. I know a few more people have just showed up, so I'll just say hi to Feng Soon Tan. I'm not sure where SG is, but I guess that means morning time for you. Singapore, I'm going to guess Singapore. We have Beverly Gunn is here. Hi there, Beverly. Good to see you. Jennifer is here from New York. Okay, so today we're going to talk about proposals, how to structure a proposal when you give a price. And our agenda for today's session is we're going to look at when should you write a proposal. I'll talk about the golden rule with proposals. We're going to look at why do customers ask for proposals. I'm going to give you a quick reminder of the 3 stages of the value conversation. Although if you're brand new, perhaps it'll be the first time you've heard it. We'll then look at the structure for a proposal. We're going to start with how do you open with impact? What should be the opening sentence, the opening paragraph? And we're going to look at 5 key elements of a great proposal. So a lot to cover in our 45 minutes. So let's get straight in. The golden rule about proposals is this. A proposal should only ever be sent to confirm what's already been agreed. In other words, what you really should be doing is having a conversation with your customer up front. You should have a conversation up front, and we'll talk about the structure of that conversation in a couple of seconds. We should have a conversation up front. We should have a verbal conversation about price. And then we should get agreement verbally. The best way to price when we can price face-to-face with customers is to have a face-to-face conversation. And I include Zoom in that and other online meetings. Because when you have a face-to-face conversation, you can deal with objections, for example. You are better placed to state the value, the benefits of your proposed solution. Pricing in front of someone is much more powerful. Now, sometimes you will find that customers will ask for a proposal before anything's been agreed. You've met with them, you've asked some questions to discover what it is they want, what's important to them. And before they agree to anything, they ask you to put a proposal in the mail, in the post, send it by email, whatever it might well be. And we have to be careful and understand, why is it that customers ask for a proposal before they've agreed to something? And there's a number of reasons why that could be. The first reason, it could be that you just haven't sufficiently differentiated yourself in your presentation to your client, to your customer. You haven't differentiated them, and so then they don't see why you're better, why you're different to anybody else. They're not ready to commit. And following on from that, it's because they want to compare. They want to shop around. And what we have to be wary of is that the customers that compare, the customers that shop around, will be looking for the cheapest. And you don't want to be winning the cheap customers. The people who want the lowest price are always going to be the ones that cause the biggest hassles, the biggest problems. They'll be the biggest pain. They'll be the slowest to pay you, and they'll be the first to leave when somebody cheaper comes along. We should be avoiding the price-sensitive customers, the people that just want the lowest price. So be very wary if a customer asks for a proposal. It's probably because they just want to use it to get a better price somewhere else. It could be they're asking for the proposal because they're not ready to commit. You haven't sufficiently inspired them enough for them to take the step to then work with you. And so if they're asking for a proposal, that should be raising a flag in your mind that perhaps you haven't given them sufficient benefits. You haven't built up the pain. Or it could be, and the fourth reason is, it could be they're asking for a proposal because they don't feel that you are a right fit for each other, that they actually don't want to work with you. And so sometimes what happens is people feel in a face-to-face meeting, people feel a bit awkward about saying, actually, no, I'm not interested. I don't really want to work with you. I don't want to proceed. So asking for them to send you a proposal is an easier out for them. It's an easier way for them to say, I don't want to work with you. And yet, if you're not a good fit, getting a no's okay. It's much better if you haven't inspired them, if they don't want to work with you, if they're looking to shop around, better to get a no in the meeting than to then spend hours afterwards pulling together a proposal, sending it out when they have no intention of reading it or acting on it. So that's something just to be aware of. Going back to the golden rule is when you send out a proposal, it should be to confirm what's already been agreed. If you can't reach an agreement with a potential customer or client, there's probably a reason for that, and you need to then deal with your objection handling scripts, go back and go through what their challenges are, perhaps talk about the benefits, the solutions more, to find out what is the reason why they can't take the next step. Before we dive into the 5 key elements of a proposal, the next thing I want to talk about quickly is just, and this may be a reminder for some, is what are the stages of the value conversation? When you are talking to a potential customer or potential customer client, there are really 3 stages that you go through as you start to build up the value. The first of those is you want to uncover the value. And what that means is you want to start off every meeting with a potential client, potential customer, by asking questions. Now, in last month's session, we had a session called The Right Questions. If you came to that, great. If you missed it, go and catch up. It's there. You can catch up with last month's session. What we talked about in that is that when you start a meeting with a potential customer, the key is to ask questions. And I talk about a 4-phase process that we go through of asking background questions, of asking problem questions, consequence questions, and outcome questions. And we do it in a particular order. And what we're looking to do as we ask questions, as we uncover the value, is not just learn a little bit. We want to learn a bit about the background, why they're talking to us, but more important, We want to understand what are they trying to achieve, what are the outcomes they're looking for, what are their goals in life, in business, where are they trying to get to. Even more important, what's the pain they're experiencing right now? What's the problem? What's the pain? What's the consequences? And then we also want to find out what it is that they value. What's important to them? What do they value? Because the better we understand that, the better we understand the challenges, the pain they are in right now, the better we understand where they want to get to, the better we understand what's important to them, what's value to them, then the better placed we are to come up with the right solution. And so stage one is to uncover the values, to ask questions. Stage two is where we then build the value. And we build up the value in their mind through communication, the words that we use to explain the benefits of what we will do for them, the outcomes that we'll get for them, the pain that we'll take away. And if it's a big project, it's always a good idea to treat those as two separate meetings. The first meeting is to uncover the value. I sometimes call that the fact find. It's about understanding the customer, the client, their goals, their pain, their challenges, what they value. The better we understand that, we can go away then and start to think about, so what would be the right solution for them? And that then also gives you time to think about how you're going to build up the value. How you're going to demonstrate the value. You might then start thinking about creating different options, different packages. I call that menu pricing. Think of it as the bronze, silver, gold. It gives you time to think about and create that. And one of the things that you might want to do in that meeting is use a draft proposal. In other words, what I'm going to teach you next, the 5 steps of a proposal, you might want to use those to create a draft proposal, which will be your agenda for the meeting. It'll give you a structure for the meeting that you have when you build up the value. So the draft proposal is there to help you guide that conversation, to talk about how you'll solve the client's, the customer's problems. And then in stage 3, you capture the value in the price. And what I mean by that is that you want to set your price based on the value you create. The greater the value, the bigger the problem you solve, the bigger the outcome is likely to be, the better you communicate that and the client perceives and sees that value, then you can charge a higher price. They will, as they perceive greater value, they will willingly pay more for you to get those outcomes and take away the pain. So today we're talking really about how we can use the proposal to help build up the value, and then after the conversation we can finalize it and send it out to confirm what we've agreed. So let's go through the 5 elements of the proposal. So the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we grab their attention. If you've followed marketing for decades now, marketers often talk about the AIDA formula, A-I-D-A. And the formula essentially means this. A is about attention. It's about grabbing someone's attention. I is for interest, D is for desire, and A is for action. And a proposal and the conversation that you have if you're going through your draft proposal is essentially a marketing conversation and a sales conversation. And so we want to use all of these techniques that marketers have been teaching us for decades. And so the AIDA formula, we can build into our proposal. So when we think about A is for grabbing attention. If you were writing a mail shot, for example, a marketing piece, then that would be the headline. The headline is going to grab their attention that makes them want to read on. In the same way, we want to grab their attention in our proposal, in that opening sentence. We could even have a subject line as part of the proposal. And what you want to do in that grabbing their attention, the opening sentence, the opening paragraph of your proposal should identify or restate the problem. Ideally, restate, because hopefully what you've done is, if you followed the 3 stages of the value conversation, if you've asked the questions, the things that we talked about in last month's session, if you've asked the questions and start to ask them about what their challenges are, their problems are, we should have now a better idea of what is the big problem. What is the problem that they've come to us for? That should be your first sentence. Let's just grab them straight away and tell them and restate what that problem is. So it may be, let me give you an example. We'll use bookkeeping as an example. So if you're a bookkeeper and someone came to see you, they're looking to hire you as a bookkeeper, and what you may have uncovered once you'd asked a few background questions, identified why they go into business, what do they do, one of the things you'll want to uncover early on is, what's the big problem? And the problem might be that they've said their books and records are in a mess. So if it turns out that's what you're looking to, that's your solution is around that, then the opening sentence will repeat that, will restate it. The opening sentence will be, when we met last week, you said that your books and records are in a mess, and so this proposal is about solving that problem. So simple, it can be just a simple sentence, simple paragraph to identify, restate the problem, which you should already know because that came out of that phase 1, that uncover the value, the questions that you asked. The second thing you want to build into this, the next thing you want to build in to your proposal is, and what we want to do is, I'm going to go through 5, by the way. So number 1, the first thing we want to do is to set out what is their current pain. What's the pain that they're experiencing right now? And so we start off with what's the problem. We grab attention, we repeat what the problem is. But what we also want to do is, in our opening 1 or 2 paragraphs and sentences, is identify or restate what is the pain. What is the pain they're going through? And this is really important. And the reason why we start there, the reason why we start our proposals there, the reason why we start our conversations there is because people are more motivated by the avoidance of pain than the attainment of gain. Most people are moving away from something. They don't like pain. So we focus there in our conversations, in our proposals. And if you were at last month's session, we talked about, in the questioning process, that we ask problem questions and consequence questions. In other words, what we want to do in the conversation, when we're uncovering the value, when we're having our first meeting with the potential client, the potential customer, is once we understand what their problems are, and it could be more than one problem, by the way. I'm using the example of the books and records are a mess. There could be other things as well, and that's fine. If they've got multiple problems, get those into the first paragraph. But I'll stick with an example with one problem. What we want to do is we don't want to stop there. We want to ask more questions. We want to drill down. We want to start to uncover the consequences of the problem. So we'll use the example of the books and records are a mess. The books and records are a mess. Okay, but what does that really mean? And it may be that as we ask probing questions, we uncover that the real pain they're going through right now, it could be a number of things. It could be their sales ledger is in a mess, so they don't know who owes them money, and therefore they're sending out incorrect incorrect statements, and as a result, and therefore asking for the wrong amounts of money. Sometimes as a result of that, they're not collecting the money they're owed for sales they've made. Sometimes they're chasing money when the customer had already paid them, and so they're annoying customers. Perhaps some customers are leaving as a result. It may be that because the books and records are a mess, it may well be that also they've got the tax man breathing down their neck. It could be because the books and records are a mess. They have no idea what their cash position is. They never know if they've got enough money to pay the payroll at the end of the month. There could be a multitude of pain points, and you'll uncover those through great questions. It all starts with great questions. But in our proposal, we want to start off by setting out the current pain. So this means grab their attention, what's the problem or problems, and then we go further and we identify or restate the pain. And we restate those things that we learned. So we might say, Our proposal might start if you were a bookkeeper and it was about bookkeeping work, then your proposal might start. This proposal is to help you solve the problem you mentioned of your books and records being a mess. And this has a number of consequences. You said, firstly, that you don't know how much money that you are need to collect. You're upsetting customers. You've got the tax man breathing down your neck, and so on. You would list the pain. You would talk about the pain they're going through. Because when you start off your proposal like that, we're grabbing their attention, and the AIDA formula stands for interest. We're then building on that. We're really focusing on the pain, because when they see that in your proposal, and if it's a draft proposal and you're using it for the agenda in the conversation, as we get into as we restate the pain, the problems and the pain, in their mind it's building this back up again. Yes, I'd forgotten, that's a big problem. Yes, I did say that last week. This is I've got to get this sorted out. The more you get their mind focused on the pain, the more they want to buy your solution. And the more they want to buy your solution, the more they want to move away from the pain, the less important price becomes. So we want to start off by setting out the current pain. There's a third element to it that we want to do. So we start by restating the problem. Then we list the pain. What's the pain they're going through? The consequences of that problem. And then we also want to, in that opening 1 or 2 paragraphs, calculate, where possible, how much that pain has already cost them. And again, back in last month when we looked at the right questions, we gave some examples of quantification. The importance of calculating. You want to ask questions in the uncover phase to get down to the numbers, the measurable numbers. If the client says they're sending out the wrong statements to their customers because their sales ledger is a mess, then we want to quantify that. How much money do they feel they're not collecting because they don't know what they're owed? What's the value of customers they might be losing in a typical month? If the problem is cash flow related, let's put some numbers on that. So the more we can attach numbers to those pain, the more we build it up in their mind, the more that pain becomes real, the more we use numbers, the more that pain's real, and the more the client's realizing, this is costing me a lot of money. This needs fixing, this needs solving. That's why we use numbers. Make it more real and make it more pressing that this is a problem that needs solving, because if they don't solve it, it's going to cost them. So that's the first of this 5-step process, the 5 things that we have in our proposal. The first thing is we set out the current pain, the problems, the pain, and we quantify the pain. It doesn't need to be, it's not pages, it's just perhaps a couple of paragraphs. Then what we want to do, the second element of our proposal, is now we want to set out the future. What's the future? And there are 2 things that we can do here in our proposal. One of those is we can calculate the future pain, and this is what's often called future pacing. What it means is that we calculate how much how much it's already cost them, the pain, and then we start to look at, okay, if they don't act, if they don't buy your solution, if they don't do anything, if they let things carry on as they are right now, what's it going to cost them in the future? And this is just about extrapolating. If we know what it's cost them in the past, let's say we know that this problem's cost them $10,000 in the last 3 months alone, then over the next year, that could be $40,000 of future pain for the next year. So we just extrapolate. So we talk about what is the pain, what's the cost of that pain if they don't take action, if they don't do anything. And the second element of setting out the future that we want to do is also, what are the desired outcomes? We want to paint a picture of what will their life look like, feel like after you've delivered the solution. So we now painted the picture of where they're trying to get to, how our solution will solve their problems. What will their life be like? And if you think back to the session last month on asking the right questions. One of the things that you'll want to do as you uncover the value in the conversation is the fourth category of questions is the outcome questions. If we can get in the conversation the client, the customer, to articulate what they see as the benefits of the outcomes, we can build those into the proposal. Okay, so that's number 2. Quick recap. First thing we do in our proposal, the first 1 or 2 paragraphs is all about setting out the current pain, the pain they're in right now. Then we move on to setting out the future. Again, that just might be 1 or 2 paragraphs. We're probably still in the first page of the proposal, but it's all about grabbing their attention and creating interest in them reading on, because they want this solving, they want to move away from the pain, and they want a better future. They want a different outcome. So what do we do next in stage 3? So now we are ready to start to talk about the solution and the price. Solution and price. So this is where you would then talk about, well, what is it that you would do? What's your proposed solution? If it was bookkeeping, you might talk about what it is that you do as part of bookkeeping, what are the various reconciliations that you do, the processes that you go through. So talk about your solution, what you propose to do to solve the pain and to help them move towards that preferred future. And it may well be that as you explain the solution, it may be you're going to give the client different choices, different options. So I mentioned earlier when I looked at the building the value phase of the value conversation, one of the things you'll do, and remember the draft of the proposal could be used as your agenda for that building the value. One of the things that you'll want to do is perhaps give them some choices, some different options to choose from. And if you've heard me teach menu pricing before, think of it as the bronze, silver, gold strategy, you'll know that's extremely powerful, giving people a choice, particularly in the draft proposal. Give them a few different options, some different choices, because that way, rather than revealing just one price, if you just give them one price in the meeting, then that's the wrong price guaranteed. It's the wrong price. If you just give them one solution with one price, it's the wrong price, because everybody's willing to pay a different price. And everybody has what's called a buyer's reservation price, or more commonly referred to as the maximum willingness to pay. For anything, there's a maximum that someone's willing to pay. Now, you don't know what that is. You'll never know what that is. When you're meeting a client, a customer, and you're talking about what you can do to solve their problems, you don't know how much they're willing to pay. When you give them a price, when you reveal your price for that solution, the probability, the chances that that price you give is exactly the maximum they're willing to pay is so unlikely, so remote, so improbable, it'll probably never ever happen. The price that you give them will be one of 2 things. The price you reveal, the price that you give, will be either too high or too low. So as you're talking through your draft proposal, as you're building the value in the value conversation, you're starting to talk about the pain they're going through. You're helping them to identify what that's costing them, where they want to get to. In their mind, subconsciously usually, they're not usually aware, but in their mind, there's a number starting to form, this maximum willingness to pay. Let's call it $10,000, for example. They might be thinking, this is such a big problem, I'd happily pay 10 grand for this, but not a penny more. Well, if you give a price that's $5,000, then the great news is they will accept. They will probably say yes, because it's below their maximum willingness to pay. But whenever you give a price that's below their maximum, you've left money on the table. They would have paid you more. If, on the other hand, you come in with a price of, let's say, $15,000, then that's above the maximum. And so you don't make the sale. And that's the problem with a single price. And that's why menu pricing, giving people different choices, is much more powerful. Because if they had a maximum that was 10,000, and as you're going through the building up the value and you give them some different options, and it may be you have a $5,000 option, a $9,900 option, and a $15,000 option, then they'll probably go for the middle option at 9,900, which is pretty close to the maximum. But if you just went in with one price of 5,000, you're leaving money on the table. When you give people choices, you are much more likely to present an option, a package that's much closer to the maximum willingness to pay than had you have just given a single price. That's the main reason why giving choices, giving options is so powerful. It's not only that, there are other options too, other reasons as well. Customers love choice. People like to feel they're in control. When you talk to your customer, your client, and talk about different options, different packages, other things they can add on, they feel they're in control. When people are feel they're in control of the buying process, they are much more likely to buy. So as you are presenting your solutions and price, think about how you might, in your draft proposal, give some different options, some different things to choose from. Now, I said to you earlier, because this might be going through your mind right now as I talk about this, that a proposal should be simply to confirm what's already been agreed in writing. And so you might be thinking, well, why would we give people choices in the proposal when the idea is to confirm what's already been agreed? Well, that's because, as I said, the draft proposal is a powerful tool as part of the building up the value in the conversation. In the conversation with the customer, you will give them some various choices. And it may be at the end of that meeting, they then commit and agree and say, I want the middle option, I'm happy with that. When you then send them the final proposal, at that stage, you can change that section and just list the single option, the thing that they've chosen. Okay, so with that said, where are we at? Yes, so number 3 is we are talking about the solution and the price. So we want to talk about the solution. What is it that we're going to do? Give them perhaps some options, some choices, some things they can add into their package, into the solution. And we also want to reveal the price. We want to reveal the price. And we want to reveal the price in our conversation with the client for the reasons that we've talked about. Because only then will you know whether your price is too high or too low. And if your price is too high, it may be that it's only too high because the person you're talking to, the potential customer, doesn't yet see the value. They didn't fully understand the value. So when the price is too high in the meeting, you have the opportunity to deal with objections and go back and restate the value, for example. So we reveal the price. And the other thing that you want to build into your proposals, both the draft and the final, as well as the price, you want to set out what are your payment terms. You want to create complete clarity in their mind as to not just the price, but when will that be paid? How will that be paid? Because that will avoid disputes later. Okay, the payment terms are really important. Right, that's stage 3. Stage 3 is the solution and the price. And if we're thinking about how long a proposal might well be, this could be the longest part of the proposal, because in step 1, we're talking about the pain and the problems. That might be a couple of paragraphs. Then in step 2, we're talking about the future pain and the future outcomes. And that, again, might be a couple of paragraphs. We're looking at the big picture outcomes. But now we're getting into the detail bit of it. Now we're going to talk about the things that we could do. And what we want to do when we talk about, let's use bookkeeping as an example, then if it was a bookkeeping proposal, you'd want to make sure you explain all the processes you go through and the benefits of those proposals and those processes and why you do them. You might want to talk about the fact that you'll reconcile their bank account every week or every month and explain why you do that, why it's so important, how they benefit. You might want to talk about how you enter bank transactions, income, payments, how you enter the sales receipts, the sales invoices, the payments, suppliers' invoices, and you reconcile those, and so on and so forth. You want to go into the detail in this part of the proposal. And it may well be that if there's a lot of detail, you might want to put some of the detail in an appendix. Okay, that's the third stage. Now, number 4, what we want to do next in the 4th section of our proposal is talk about scope. Scope is really important. One of the big problems people often have when they have particularly big projects is work taking longer than they expected. They've given a price, they thought it would take this long to do, it's taken twice as long, and you end up making a loss. And that's because of something called scope creep. And scope creep is something that arises because of 2 things. Number 1 is because we've not been clear at the pricing stage, and number 2 is a project management issue. And we're not talking about project management right now, we're focusing on the proposal. But the better we are at building scope into our proposals, the better we will become at avoiding the problem later of scope creep. So what do we do in this section? In this next section of the proposal, we want to set out what are the responsibilities, who's responsible for what. It may be that there's certain phases of the project, of the work, that you can't do until the customer's done something, or you can't do properly unless the customer does it on time at a certain point in time. So you want to make sure that in your proposal you do set out the responsibilities, particularly the responsibilities of the customer. What are the things that they've agreed to do? What are the things they've got to do? What are the things that are essential for them to do to enable you to do the solution, to do the next stage? Responsibilities are really important. Think about what you need the customer to do and get those into the proposal. That takes away it just makes it clearer who's doing what. And it also means that if the customer then does the things they promise they're going to do, it's going to make the project much easier in the future and reduce the scope creep. So what are the responsibilities? Who's responsible for what? Also, what's the scope of the work? So what is it that you're agreeing to do? What are you agreeing to do? And very often we rush this bit and don't create that clarity. If we don't create clarity on the scope of the work, then if things change, and very often things do change, if it was bookkeeping, for example, keeping with that example, if it was bookkeeping, it may be that you've come up with a solution and a price based on the fact that the customer, the client, has said they do a certain number of transactions. And you've used that as the basis for pricing. And it then turns out, further down the line, that either the customer underestimated, perhaps they didn't realize there was twice as many transactions that they just didn't know, or perhaps they were right, but something changed in the next month or two. The project's got bigger because something's changed in the client's business, the customer's business. They've grown and there's more transactions. For some reason, something's changed, the transactions have gone up, the scope of the work's changed. And so we want to make it really clear in our proposals, what is the scope of the work? What have we based the price upon? This price is for doing this, this, and this, and it's based upon you being of this size, of having this number of transactions, this number of employees, whatever it might well be. The more clarity we can create in the agreed proposal, the easier it becomes later in the future if that scope changes for whatever reason. If it's bookkeeping, the client then doubles their transactions. We gave a price in a proposal that they agreed and signed, and so it's much easier to go back to the client and say, the scope's now changed. We have to revisit the price. And the third thing that we want to build into this scope section, so there's the responsibilities, who's responsible, what's the customer responsible for doing, what's the scope of the work, and then I would argue the most important bit, which is the bit that's most neglected, is what's outside the scope. What's not included in this? Very often in proposals, it's silent on things that are not included because it's very often assumed the customer will know that it doesn't include X, Y, Z. But sometimes the customer's expectations are very often different. So again, bookkeeping is an example. It may be that the customer's assuming that when you do the bookkeeping, that you'll also do the payroll and file their payroll returns. And as far as you're concerned, that's a different service. But you were silent on that. You sign off the proposal, you start the work. A month later, the client's complaining because their payroll returns haven't been submitted and they're in trouble with the tax man, and they thought you were doing that and you didn't think you were. So what's outside the scope? So what you want to do here is start to, from your own experience, is start to think about, well, what are some of the things that customers might expect us to do, which are different services? So you might start to list some of the common things that you could do that are not part of the project, so it's really clear. So you might say, for example, if it was bookkeeping, one of the things this proposal does not cover is payroll. If you would like us to process your payroll, submit your returns, then we can do that and we can agree a separate fee for that. And that then again makes it completely clear. Okay, that's number 4. Where have we got to? The first step, remember, is we want to talk about the current pain. The second step is the future. The third stage of that proposal is the solution and the price. 4 is the scope. Number 5, we want to finish off with next steps. We want to make sure that it's crystal clear what happens next. What happens next? And so some of the things that we might do. Remember, this proposal is to confirm what's been agreed in writing. What we might want to do at this stage is reassure the customer. This is where you might want to build in any promises, any guarantees that you've got that will take away any risks or reason for them not to buy. So guarantees can be really important at this stage in the process. Or it could be reassuring the customer. The customer, if what you're selling is a recurring fee, a monthly fee, for example, there may be this in the customer's mind thinking, oh, if I sign to this, I've got this monthly commitment, and that might give them pause to think and might put them off agreeing. So we might reassure them by saying, when we start this project, we'll review it in, let's say, 60 days' time. And if anything about this you're not happy with in 60 days, we can go back and we can change something. So that means they're not locked in forever to that price, and it just reassures and makes it easier for them to say yes. So in our next steps, we might give them some reassurance. We should also tell them exactly what happens next, and that would be to include signing it. How do they sign it? When do they sign it? When's the work going to start? What's the first step in the process? We want to set out exactly what will happen next. It may be they have to pay the deposit, and so you'll tell them exactly how they pay the deposit or the first month. Okay, so that's the 5 steps of a great proposal. Let's just quickly recap on all the things we've covered in this session. So number 1, we looked at when should you write a proposal, and I explained the golden rule is that proposals should be written to confirm what's already been agreed. We talked about, and that means having a face-to-face conversation, a conversation on a virtual meeting, for example. We then looked at, so what are the reasons why customers might ask for a proposal instead of agreeing? And we looked at things like sometimes if they ask for a proposal because they say they want to go and think about it, that should raise a red flag because it probably means they want to shop around. They have no intention of working with you, but they're too embarrassed to say no, and the other reasons we talked about. We also looked at the 3 stages of the value conversation, the importance of the uncovering the value, the asking the right questions, because if you do that really well, if you ask the right questions, then, and you follow the process that I taught in a previous session, when you ask the right questions, much of those questions and the answers you get will form the basis for your proposal. You'll probably gather that from, I've referred back to that a lot. So we talked about the 3 stages: uncover the value, building the value, which is the words that you use to build up the value, and you may use a draft proposal as your agenda for that meeting. And then we also capture the value in the price. So we looked at the 3 stages of the value conversation, and then we went into the structure of the proposal and those 5 key elements. What is the current pain? What's the future that we're looking to achieve? What's the solution, the price, payment terms? What's the scope of the work? and what are the next steps. That's how you structure a great proposal. We have 15 minutes left, so I'll be answering questions, as many as I can. I can see some QQs that have come through in the chat, so I will be looking at questions. One of the things Lisa normally reminds people of in the question, but I've actually remembered this time, Lisa, if you found that valuable, please hit the thumbs up button, the like button, wherever you are on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. I'd really appreciate that if you got some value from it. Before we dive into answering your questions, one of the things I have to do firstly is wake my computer up, which went to sleep, because I have the poll set up. So this is your chance to vote for what we talk about next month. So if I press the right button, this is the poll. If you're new, this is how we do it. We use a tool called Slido. There's 5 options. You can vote for the one that you would like me to teach you next month. There are 3 ways that you can get to this poll. If you're doing it on your phone, for example, you can scan that QR code. It'll take you straight to this poll. Or you can go to your browser and go to slido.com, and then it'll ask you to put in a reference. In this case, it's 7039918. That's the numbers in the bottom left of the screen that you can see. Or number 3, Sarah's already started doing it. She will put a link to the poll. She's done it in YouTube. It's going to appear in LinkedIn. It has now, and I think it's about to appear in Facebook as well. So either click on the link, use the QR code, or just go to slido.com and then let me know whether you want me to teach you how to write great marketing copy, if you want to look at a marketing topic next month, or it may be understanding what your ideal client really wants. How do we start to understand what ideal clients want? What's the process that we go through to uncover that? Or it may be you want me to help you with communicating with confidence online on a webcam, for example. How can you be confident when you're having online meetings, for example, with potential customers? Or number 4, perhaps you want me to teach you referral systems for getting new customers. And number 5, how to get systems for getting testimonials, and how to use them. I can see that Lisa says, sorry, Slido says there's no such item. So that's strange. I'm just going to ask Sarah to double check that. It's working, Lisa, because I can see lots of votes have come in already. So Lisa, try the link that Sarah's put in there, or perhaps try the going to slido.com with that number. Okay, I want to get on to questions. So I'm going to just give it a few seconds for people to cast their vote, and then I'll reveal which one gets. I have got no idea. This is exciting. I have no idea what's number 1 at the moment. Okay, so questions. We have 13 minutes. I will answer as many questions as I possibly can. The first thing I have to do is find out what was the first question, because we had lots of people also saying so Yvonne's here, Yvonne Norton, Leslie Hickerson's here from Canada, Sarah Kelly, hi there Sarah, from Pennsylvania. I think Lisa was the first question. So Lisa's question is it not the case that more people are price sensitive with the current economic difficulties? Great question, Lisa. I'll answer that. Before I answer that, let's reveal the poll. Okay, Lisa, the answer coming out very soon. So I think we're going to close it very soon. Let me just show the results. And okay, it looks like in first place, and this is what we'll cover next month, is understanding what your ideal clients really want. And as soon as I said that, I should have actually closed the poll, because second and third became equal second and third. Let me start. So referral systems, make a note, Sarah. I'm going to close this poll. Lock the voting. It's gone back to equal again. So what we'll do is, whichever came second, we always put that back into the pot for next month. So we'll put both in, Sarah. I think how to write great marketing copy, referral systems, we'll put those back into the voting for next month. So you get a second chance to vote for those. But it will be understanding what your client really wants. Okay, let's answer that question from Lisa. So her question, just remember, is it not the case that more people are price sensitive with the current economic difficulties? Yes and no. The first thing to recognize, Lisa, is we have to understand, what does price sensitive mean? Because a price sensitive person is somebody who always wants the cheapest, who buys the cheapest of everything, the cheapest car, wears the cheapest underwear, buys the cheapest house in the cheapest part of town. That's a price-sensitive person. They're the sorts of people that you might see shopping in the UK. We have Poundland. I think in the US you have dollar stores. They're people that always look for the cheapest. And yes, there are price-sensitive people. But one of the things we know from research by behavioral economists and by price psychologists is the proportion of price-sensitive people in society is not as great as we think. It's a minority. The reality is, Lisa, is that most people are what's called value sensitive. And what that means is that when most of us buy, what we do mentally, subconsciously, is we assess what's the benefit to us of buying this thing? What's it going to give us? And what's the price that we pay? And as long as there's a big enough gap, we get more benefits than the price, we will buy. And so we're not looking for the thing that's the cheapest. We're looking for the thing that's got the biggest benefit over and above price. And that's why when I teach pricing is you don't want to be the cheapest. Instead, focus on creating more value, more benefits, more perceived benefits, and more people will buy. And in the accounting profession, one of the great things is that the reality is you don't have price-sensitive clients because the clients of your firm are not representative of the population as a whole. In other words, the clients of accounting firms are business owners, entrepreneurs, high net worth individuals. And for reasons I won't go into now, you cannot be a price sensitive business owner and build a successful business. There's reasons for that. When you're price sensitive and your mind is focused on price, then you will be cheap yourself and you'll fail in business. So you'll find that most of your clients are focused on value. And one way of demonstrating that is think about your clients and think about any clients you have that own an Apple product like an iPhone, like an iPad, like an iMac computer. Anybody that buys from Apple cannot be price sensitive because there are cheaper ways of buying computers, tablets, and mobile phones. I bought my last mobile phone was a iPhone 13. I think it was over €1,000. I could get one for a tenth that price, a Motorola or something. I'm not price sensitive. Most people aren't. Many people buy their coffee from Starbucks. Starbucks customers, and this goes for Costa Coffee and Pete's, people who buy their coffee from those chains, they cannot be price sensitive because there's cheaper ways of getting your coffee. So that's a long way of kind of saying, Lisa, is that people generally, your customers aren't price sensitive, but they might seem to be price sensitive because they might say things like, that's a bit expensive. That doesn't mean they're price sensitive. It means that they're probably value sensitive, but they don't understand the value. They don't understand the value of what you do. And that means that if we're getting people saying we're too expensive, what we really have to focus on is how can we better explain the value, the benefits? And we'll perhaps do that in another session sometime. We'll talk about communicating value, perceptions of value, and so on. Okay, let's move on to the next questions. And while I'm doing that, I can see Sybil is here as well, and Leah from the Big Apple, people I know very well. Lee said, what was the second reason? I think I probably the second reason. That was the second reason, I think, was people want to shop around. They want to compare price. That was the reason why people asked for a proposal. Maria, what does Maria say? Just bear me a second. Maria said, to determine price for proposals, am I right to offer prepaid diagnostic reviews? Yes. So, off topic, but it's a great question. If ever you are pricing something where there is uncertainty, where there's uncertainty over the outcome, there's uncertainty over the scope of work, and cleanup work is a classic example. Whenever you have to give a price for something and you don't know, then what you want to do is break the project down into milestones, into mini projects, and you price each one in turn. So you do the initial diagnostic for an agreed price, and when you've done that, you're in a better position to give a price for the next stage. So in a cleanup situation, absolutely right, Maria, you might have a price for a diagnostic review. Once you've done the diagnostic review and got paid for that, you then give them a price for doing the cleanup work. And then you might have a third stage. A third stage might be you then give them a price for training them so they don't have that problem again. Or the third stage could be the price for then doing the bookkeeping for them going forward. Okay. And Maria, who was this? It was Kim. Kim, you perhaps saw Kim's comment. Lisa says, do you have a sample proposal letter? I do, but all of the resources I've got huge amounts of in-depth training on things like proposals and letters, and I create, for example, ready to use, just bear me a second, professionally written brochures to help you build up the value. All the resources are available to members of the Value Pricing Academy and the Bookkeepers Pricing Academy. So if Lisa, I don't think you're a member of the Academy, but if you join my Pricing Academy, there are dozens and dozens of resources that I create to help you to implement and put what I teach into practice. Karamba is here from Nottingham. Hi there, Karamba. Michaela is here. Great to see you. Jean is here. Hi there, Jean. Good to see you here. I'm looking for questions. We've got 4 minutes left. Time for perhaps 1 or 2 more questions. I'm looking for these QQs. Jean. Okay, Jean says, do you have an example of a proposal as you teach? So again, same answer. Are you in the Academy? I can't remember. If you're in the Value Pricing Academy, then we do have all sorts of resources. So just reach out and we'll tell you where they are. I think that's the end of questions, even though I've got 3 or 4 minutes left. So if you've got a question, and you're the first to type it, it will get answered. What's the thing that you would like to ask me? It doesn't have to be about today's topic. Anything you would like to ask me, I will do my best to answer. There's some great comments and things. Maria says, thank you. Jennifer said, great session. I'll keep talking for 2 or 3 minutes and see if a question comes in. If not, I'll just give shout outs. Thank you, Dana, for the session. If you did enjoy it, please give it a thumbs up. And I look forward to seeing you next month. No questions coming yet. I'm still looking for a question. Chris said the Facebook link works, but we've closed the poll now. Sorry. Okay. I think something's come in. Yes, a question. Okay. So let's do this one. There's 2 questions. Let's do Maria's first, and then Karamba, and then we'll finish, I think. Unless Sarah's got a question for me. Maria says, I have to tell you the date of the next session as well, which I have no idea when it is. So I will have to panic and look for the date of the next session. Perhaps Sarah can tell me on a piece of paper in a second. Let me answer 2 questions. Do you recommend set proposals for each service? Yes, for each of the main services, with one exception. If you are, if you're using a system like my effective pricing software, I usually recommend having a separate price for each of the main services. If it's a particularly big project, it could be, I don't know, $30,000, $40,000 project because you're doing perhaps virtual FD work, and as part of that, you might be doing the bookkeeping as well. You could create a big proposal, and you would probably want, for a big project like that, for a 30, 40 grand project, you'd probably want to have multiple meetings, a fact-find meeting, a meeting to present your draft proposal, another meeting to perfect it and fine-tune it based on what the client said they want, and so on. When it's the bigger the project, the more likely you'll have multiple meetings. And it may be that you then ultimately get down to an overall proposal for the $40,000 project. But if for smaller projects, if you've got a smaller client and you're going to be doing their bookkeeping, but also they want payroll, I would recommend you price them separately. And then Karamba said, how do you join your academy? You can't, they're closed at the moment, but we are running an online conference, 3-day conference, October, you might want to make a note of this, October the 4th, 5th and 6th, it's online. October 4th, 5th and 6th. It's called Value 2022. We are going to be sending out information later this month. So if you're on my email list, you'll get an email or watch social media. We're going to be giving initially free places for the conference. So come to the conference on the 4th, 5th and 6th, get a free ticket. Look out for that coming out later this month. And during those 3 days, we're going to go deep in about 10, 12 hours. I'll be teaching you the foundations of value pricing, how to capture value, how to create value. And during that conference, Karamba, we'll be opening up enrollment for the Academy. So we'll be open enrollments, Karamba, on the 4th, 5th and 6th of October. Okay, I think we've run out of time. There's some lovely comments come in, which I'll probably put up on the screen as we go through. If you got in with a question a bit later, I think Lisa did. We always finish as a hard stop on the hour. It's 5 o'clock here in Portugal. So if I missed your question, 2 options: either wait till next month, and I need to tell you when next month is. Either next month, ask the question again, and I'll answer it. If you can't wait till next month, Lisa, copy and paste it into my Facebook group, Value Price with Mark Wickersham. Tag me in there, and I will answer it. The next session is August the 30th. It's a Tuesday. So that makes it 1, 2, 3. That's 4 weeks today. Okay, 4 weeks today is the next session. Hopefully I'll see you then. As usual, if you're brand new, I'm going to play out with some music. Gives me chances to read all your kind comments. So I will see you on the 30th. If you're in the Academy, I'll see you long before then, next week's mentoring week, teaching week. Okay, see you soon. Bye for now.